Senator, I just had on your new colleague, Bill Hagerty. Great guy, very smart. He hasn't made up his mind yet on whether the United States ought to boycott the Olympics if they don't move from the People's Republic of China. Have you made up your mind yet?
Hugh, I think we can cross that bridge when it gets to it. I've joined Bill and other senators in saying that we should relocate the Winter Olympics away from China so we don't give them a propaganda victory at a time they are crushing all dissent and political autonomy and freedoms in Hong Kong, while also engaged in genocide in Xinjiang province against a religious and ethnic minority. I hope that the IOC will listen to our calls and take action. Again, these are the Winter Olympics, not the Summer Olympics. The Winter Olympics are a much smaller affair, and therefore it's much less complicated to try to move them on relatively short notice.
Now, Senator Michael Waltz in the House, and I always disclose my son works for him, put out a resolution saying the IOC did not act on, I think it was Senator Scott's resolution. The time is too short. We have to announce the boycott now as a lever on them. What's your deadline in your mind to join an effort like Congressman Waltz's?
So Hugh, I don't think yet the time is too short, and that's in part informed by what we've seen over the last year. You know, it was a year ago tomorrow that the NCAA canceled a lot of sports, and kind of the world froze on March 11th. And you've seen an amazing ability to have major events come off in relatively short order, things that wouldn't be have been expected over a year ago. So I think there's still some time left before we have to make that decision. Obviously, we want to balance the interests and aspirations of our great Olympic athletes against hosting the Olympics in China, given all the things they've done to their own people and to American interests at home and abroad.
So let me flip my next question on its head, Senator. I have a long list of things that President Biden and his team have already done that are wrong. I'm wondering if you can come up with anything that they have done that is right.
Hugh, the list is pretty long of things they've done wrong, especially if you look at what they've done in the Middle East, in terms of trying to go back to the table with Iran, revoking the terrorist designation of the Houthi organization in Yemen, which has just caused them to become more aggressive against our allies in the Arabian Peninsula, engaged in a somewhat feckless and weak attack against Iranian-backed militias for trying to kill Americans. In fact, even refusing to call them Iranian-backed militias. I don't know if you've noticed, but the new Pentagon standard is Shia-backed militias. So they would slander an entire branch of the Islamic faith than say that Tehran-backed militias are trying to kill Americans.
That's pretty remarkable. I want to ask you about, as well, since you're on the Intel Committee, there is a story last night that a Silicon Valley startup by the name of Verkada, Verkada, was breached, and the hackers obtained thousands of security camera video backup of places like Tesla, jails, hospitals, and it again exposes to us how vulnerable the United States is. Have you been briefed on that one yet, Senator?
Hugh, I don't want to speak about classified matters. I will simply say this. Hacking into a company like that to obtain footage of proprietary industrial practices is exactly the kind of thing that the Chinese Communist Party would do, and in fact, in some cases, have been doing for a couple decades now, to try to steal our property, reverse engineer it, and then use it for their own benefit, both their military and for jobs for their people, while taking jobs from our people.
Well, I can also think of, and I had in mind the pictures from Abu Ghraib, that if you grab, if the PRC did this, or another hostile nation state, or even organized crime, they will have in their vault now thousands of hours of video that they can selectively release to turn on the outrage mobs, rightly or wrongly, on various things. It's a complete, I had never even considered hacking security videos until this morning.
Yeah, security videos, or for that matter, manipulated videos as well, too.
So do you think there's any organized effort that's across the aisle bipartisan to somehow strengthen protection against hacking, Senator?
Yes, Hugh, and it's something that our intelligence community in particular has focused on. This is something on which the Intelligence Committee in the Senate, it's fairly routine hearings because it is such a grave threat to Americans' privacy and to their security and to their jobs and our economic prosperity, because so much of what China does is designed to steal sell our property, to be able to reverse engineer our proprietary industrial practices and create copycats in China.
Now, this is a horn of a dilemma because yesterday Team Biden hinted that they were going to nominate a graduate of law school 4 years out to be a chair, to have a membership on the Federal Trade Commission, a 4-year lawyer. First of all, in general, from any administration, what do you think about a 2017 graduate getting a chair on the Federal Trade Commission?
Well, Hugh, I'll evaluate that nominee on his or her merits when we get to the nomination. I will say a lot of these nominees have been far left ideologues. You may have seen the hearing at the Judiciary Committee yesterday with Vanita Gupta to be the number 3 person at the Department of Justice. I mean, she refused to say whether if Democratic mega donor and notorious sexual predator Harvey Weinstein decided to identify as a woman tomorrow, the government would have to move him to a women's prison facility. She refused to say whether she would intervene in cases to force high school athletic conferences to require a biological boy to be allowed to compete against girls if he wanted to transition his gender identity. So she's a far left ideologue, as are most of Joe Biden's nominees. So I'll evaluate that nomination on the merit, but if it passes prologue, it doesn't bode well.
Now, do you get any sense that Joe Manchin is going to draw a line in the sand around anyone other than Neera Tanden? Is he going to help out on any of these people?
Well, there's been a precedent established with Neera Tanden about the intemperate demeanor that she displayed on social media. We had another one of these nominees in front of the Armed Services Committee last week, Colin Call, to be the number 3 official in the Department of Defense. If anything, his social media posts are worse than Tanden, and that position is much more important than the Office of Management and Budget. The senior policy official at the department, even tempered and relatively nonpartisan. And Colin Call is not only an ideologue, but he's an unbalanced, unhinged partisan. And I can't imagine that Joe Manchin, having established that precedent for Neera Tanden, is going to somehow break the precedent for Colin Call. But we'll see where the votes are whenever it comes to the Armed Services Committee.
Now, I want to close on the COVID bill, Senator Cotton. The liberal media is saying that the Republicans blew their chance to defeat the COVID bill by not arguing the specifics, instead arguing Dr. Seuss. How do you respond to that? And then which specifics do you think are going to become the key reminders of how bad the COVID bill is?
Well, Hugh, first off, I dissent that you refer to it as a COVID bill because it's far from a COVID bill. This bill is just paying off a lot of Democratic clients and patrons, like public employee unions and teachers unions, and fulfilling a lot of longstanding Democratic wish lists. But the Democrats cast some amazing votes Friday night, Saturday morning, Hugh. They voted to continue giving stimulus checks to prisoners, people like the Boston Marathon bomber, and Harvey Weinstein, for that matter. They voted to give money to cities and states that remain sanctuary jurisdictions to protect criminal illegal aliens without providing any sanctuary to their victims. They voted to continue giving checks to illegal aliens. So the Democrats cast a lot of astonishing votes, and I suspect that you will see a lot of those votes come back in television advertisements next year in the midterm election campaign.
I hope you are right. I also think people need to know that San Francisco got bailed out. I just can't believe that Nancy Pelosi stuck in hundreds of millions of dollars for the city of San Francisco, one of the worst managed cities in the United States of America, Senator. Did Little Rock get any money?
Well, you're probably not as much as San Francisco will, but there's virtually no Democratic jurisdiction, city, county, or state that won't be bailed out. And some of the fine print that is still coming to light is amazing. I don't know if you know as well that cities and states that take this money are prohibited from cutting taxes for the next. So money is fungible. So even though they prohibited money from going to their public employee pension plan managed, of course, if the state can put money towards, say, teacher salaries or firefighter salaries from this bill, they can shift their general revenues to shore up their pensions.
Oh, my goodness. That's a spending clause case.
Taxpayers.
That is a spending clause case. That is a bridge too far. That's like Obamacare and Medicaid. I hope someone brings that. Senator Tom Cotton, always a pleasure to speak to you, Senator. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Hugh.